We have now crossed that halfway point of the week. We are on day number 4. We're back on our lower body, and it is going to concentrate on our hamstrings. So we're hamstring focused today. Where to start? Easy. Romanian deadlifts, RDLs. I have us doing it on, well, I have you doing it, I'm not doing it. I have you doing it on a hex bar. I love the hex bar because it allows you to stand inside it. I would imagine your gym looked pretty fancy. They probably have one. If they don't, a straight bar, perfectly fine. The only difference is with the hex bar, it allows you to keep your hands at the side and really keep your shoulders back, whereas a barbell makes you hold on in front, and my shoulders are already in a rounded position, which again, you can correct by pinching your shoulder blades back and then really pinching at the top. So barbell is fine, but I do prefer a hex bar if you have one. So we'll go ahead and stand in the hex bar. Once again, remember, we are gonna go ahead and we are gonna concentrate on hamstrings. So Romanian deadlifts, or also known as straight leg deadlifts. So you can start with a slight bend in your knees, but that's all the knee movement you're gonna get. Everything is on my heels. My entire weight is through my heels. I could even do this with my toes up if I wanted to, which I'm not gonna ask you to do. But from right here, you wanna puff your chest up. So again, pinch your shoulder blades, get yourself a nice lat and trap contraction here. And it is all about just sticking your butt out. And then you're gonna go right to where you feel that nice stretch in your hamstrings. See how my legs aren't perfectly straight? I have that soft bend in my knee, but I feel a huge stretch right through here. And the bar is actually at my shins. It is not to the ground like a lot of people think you have to get to. It is at my shins. Then when I'm here, the hamstrings love a nice loaded stretch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold that stretch position for a 2-second count before we go ahead and push our hips back in like we were doing a kettlebell swing. Once again, my weight never leaves my heels. The number one thing I want you to watch out for is you're down here, then when you go to lift, a lot of people tend to rock forward onto their toes. Make sure you're not rocking forward, make sure that butt stays back and you're concentrating. So even squeeze your butt right here and push your hips in. Trust me, that extra squeeze at the bottom, make sure you're squeezing your butt before you push in, is gonna save you a ton of backache because it's gonna put all the pressure on your hamstrings and your butt, and your lower back is gonna be saved. Yeah, it's gonna still have to endure some workload, but hey, it's a muscle group just like anything else. It should have to have some work. We are back into jump squats just like we did on day 2. The cool thing about jump squats now, we loaded up our hamstrings. We just got done annihilating our hamstrings with heavy deadlifts. So our hamstrings are actually gonna be the muscle group that is going to allow us to ballistically propel ourselves off the ground more so than our quads might have been on day 2. Even if you want, you can actually jump with the kettlebell like you're doing an RDL. So again, line up the same way you would, and instead of bending at your knees or squatting down, you can actually go down with relatively straight legs, get to about your shin just so you're nice and able to go, and jump from there, get a nice solid landing, go down with straight-ish legs, and once again, propel yourself up. That's gonna be that jump that's a little more hamstring dominant, but once again, I usually do that. You do not have to because it does feel weird. Just go ahead and jump normal with the kettlebell. Your hamstrings have already been torched. They'll take care of the rest. Deadlifts and jumps are 2 huge compound movements that keep our core insanely tight the entire time we're doing it. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to build on that, and we're gonna do another movement that's gonna keep our core tight. It is out of the plank position, and we are going to do a nice slow march. So we get ourselves down here in plank position. Now you're too low to the ground, but you can't just bring your knees right in right here, or else you're going to hit the ground. So you actually have to go out, try and get your knees to touch your elbow. Nice and slow and controlled. Again, your knees don't actually have to touch your elbow for the exercise to count or to be effective. That's just where you're aiming. You should feel a huge contraction right on the side of the core that you're bringing your knee into every time. Again, don't do this crazy slow unless you really want to, unless you're, excited about pain, but do this under control so you don't lose that contraction. We're gonna stick with the hamstring dominant, huge compound movements here. This is one of my favorite that is not necessarily as common as a lot of the other ones, as the deadlift, because it just looks weird. And it's named even weirder. It's called a good morning. Don't ask me why, no idea. But it's called a good morning. You're gonna load up a barbell on your back, just like you're doing a back squat, okay? Just underneath your traps. You're gonna hold it there, and I got a barbell to show you here in a sec. From that position, your movement, your body pattern is exactly the same as we did with the hex bar deadlifts. So the weight is all on your heels, you got a soft bend in your knees, and you're just sticking your butt out. The bar is not gonna roll forward, and it's not gonna roll over your head, I promise. All right, as long as you are keeping your head, your chest puffed up, your shoulders back like you should be, in a nice pinched position, pinch those shoulder blades, and just stick your butt up out, you're gonna be perfectly fine. You go as low until you feel a good stretch in your hamstrings, hold it for 2 seconds, just like we did with the deadlifts, and then squeeze your butt and drive your hips back in until you lock out. Then get your breath about you, go again. This is, again, one of my absolute favorites, and because it is so unique in the way that the bar is loaded on you while you're doing this movement, it actually creates a huge number of results because it's such a different exercise than the body is used to. So I'm here, I got it locked, so it's on my traps. I'm gonna pinch my elbows back or raise my elbows and pinch my shoulder blades, which, raising your elbows does pinch your shoulder blades. And now I'm on my heels, and I'm just gonna stick my butt back, up right there. I feel that really good stretch. I'm gonna hold it, squeeze my butt, and push my hips forward until I feel that lockout right there. And when you're done, obviously re-rack it. You're definitely gonna want a squat rack for that exercise, so you don't have to manually throw the bar up on your shoulders every single time, at least not until you know exactly how much weight you want. Jump squats, again, you should be getting an expert at these things. Again, as you are getting really, really good at these, don't think that you need to increase the weight of the kettlebell. You can just jump higher, and that's just the body exploding more. More explosion equals more benefit out of any single jump. Weight, it's a byproduct. Not that big of a deal. For this exercise, we are back down in plank position. I know that your gym has a turf area. Usually gyms with a turf area have sliders. So you are gonna need 2 sliders, 1 for each foot, or if they have a big slider for both feet, that's perfectly fine too. Right here, this is a slide board. So this is kind of like one of those boards they use for indoor hockey rinks. So it allows you to be nice and slippery on it. This is what I'm gonna use for mine. This is called a body saw. You're in plank position. Your feet are gonna be on sliders. My feet are on a towel that allow me to slide on this surface. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna push your body back just a little bit. Again, it's like the Swiss ball rollouts that we did on day 1. You don't need to move a ton, okay? You will absolutely feel, as soon as you start to push your body back a couple inches, you're gonna feel like your abs are starting to rip a little bit, and then you're gonna bring yourself forward back to where you started. So, first things first, you gotta get in a nice solid plank position. Again, these things are very, very hard. So make sure you might want to start with your butt up in the air a little bit more to make sure that your back doesn't arch back down. So we're gonna get in a solid plank position here. And I'm just gonna push myself back just a couple inches. I feel that tension in my core. Now I'm gonna pull myself back forward to the starting spot that I was in. Push back, pull forward. Push back, pull forward. It's like your body is the saw. You're just going back and forth in a nice level, straight line. Again, these are most likely, like I said on the program, gonna have to be done in a rest pause set. If you're not used to them, your core is so tight when you're doing them, it makes breathing difficult until you get a lot of practice in them. So if you have to do a rest pause set to complete it, that's perfectly fine. A reverse lunge with a suitcase hold. Okay, so we're going to just hold two. I'm gonna hold kettlebells because you know how much I love kettlebells. Dumbbells work perfectly fine. Heck, you could have just weight plates if they have a handle on, that's fine too. You're just gonna hold them like a suitcase. So you're gonna hold them down at your waist, or yeah, just like you would a suitcase. Reverse lunge. Biggest mistake I see with people in reverse lunges is they take a step back that's like this. No, 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 no. We want to take a big step back, and that's for a couple different reasons. One, the bigger step back, the more muscles you actually activate when you're going into that lunge. The smaller the step I take, now all I'm using is my quad, and I'm putting a ton of unnecessary pressure on my knee. Once again, one, this is hamstring focus day, so we want to make sure our hamstrings are involved as much as possible. And then two, we don't need to put any extra pressure on our knees. Knees have it hard enough already, all right? So let's take a little pressure, let's keep our knees nice and safe. So again, just mimic the fact that I have weights in my hands. Suitcase hold, and I'm gonna go back, nice long stride. I'm gonna stay on my heel, so I'm leaning back to stay on my heel. I'm going down most of the way, not all the way. I don't have to touch the ground here. See that kind of 90-degree bend I got in my knee? And then through my heel of my front foot, I'm gonna drive myself back up. Alternate it on the other leg. Big step back every time. These are not done for speed. You're only doing 2 rounds. Make sure you take a big step back every time. And in between reps, make sure you have your balance before you start the rep. Make sure your balance is in there. Feel free to pause in between the reps. Heck, if you gotta put the weight down, just kind of shake those arms up. If for the first day or the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, you can't use weight or you don't use weight, I don't care. Still a great exercise, still a lot of benefit on it. Ice skaters are gonna be an explosive jump, very similar to our kettlebell jumps, but they're gonna be a lateral jump. So I'm jumping to the side versus vertical. So I'm gonna incorporate a whole different group of muscles here. My outside glutes, my hips, yes, your hamstring at the same time. If I'm jumping to my left, I'm gonna push off my outside foot, I'm gonna push off my right foot, and I'm gonna explode to the left. Then I'm gonna go back, obviously, and explode back. That's one. Back and forth is one. Remember, lateral jumps, vertical jumps, it doesn't matter. If it has the word jump in it, it is done for an explosiveness. It is not done for speed. No speed. Explosive. So explode, get your balance, take a deep breath until you can explode back. Then after a couple days, after a couple weeks, once you get really good at them, if you want to start keeping your balance and going back and forth, as long as you can keep that explosion, you go for it. But for right now, feel free to take a little pause in between every jump. Plank side plank hip touch. It's exactly what it sounds like. We're gonna get in a side plank position, we're gonna touch our hips to the ground, we're gonna raise them back up. The great thing about this is this doesn't necessarily need to be done slow, as I recommend for a lot of core exercises. Because you are in that side plank position, your core is automatically super tight. The biggest thing here to concentrate on is that you are raising your hips as high as possible every single time. So we're in that side plank position. Feel free to use your offhand as a little bit of extra balance. You're gonna touch your hips to the ground. Your knee might touch as well. That's perfectly fine. And then you gotta push them up as high as you can every single time. If you're not going as high as you can, you're leaving a lot of benefits on the table. Every single time, go as high as you can. Feel free to relax, lay down, kind of shake it out, and then get back in a position to finish it out in a rest pause format if you need to. Just make sure that every single rep is as explosive on the way up and controlled on the way down as you can. On to your giant sets. Same thing as day 2 for the first 2 exercises. You're on leg extensions and then you are on leg curls. Again, I prefer a seated leg curl, but let's say you did a seated leg curl on day 2. If you want to do a lying leg curl on day 4, that's perfectly fine too. You're going to get some benefit. That is up to you. If it was me, I would stick with the seated leg curl. I love that contraction, that extra squeeze that it gives me at the very peak of the rep. But again, I digress. The other one that we're gonna do, our last giant set, is gonna be body weight squats. So just your body weight, no extra weight, and you are just on your heels. I like to keep my hands out in front. You can do whatever you want to your hands. Staying on your heels the entire time. Make sure you get to parallel every single squat. You don't have to go all the way to the floor, but I want you to get to that parallel level. When we start getting up in numbers, people start to go like this. That's not a squat, okay? Be strict with yourself. You're only doing this one round. You can do this 50. You can get the benefit out of it. Remember, working out like this is as much a mental game as anything. Be mentally strong, finish the exercises the way they are supposed to be, and you will absolutely see the benefits of it.